Amen. Perfect prayer for tonight. Thanks, TJ. Samantha, thank you for playing. Beautiful as always. Okay, well, guys, so this class, as you know, is Jesus in the Book of Mormon. And I thought a lot about what we could talk about this week. I honestly was initially wanting to talk about Jacob 7, which is about Sherem and antichrists and all of that. It's really, really great. It's such a good discussion. Oh, it kind of kills me that we're not. But given that the title of this class is Jesus in the Book of Mormon, I cannot ignore the obviousness of Jesus in Jacob chapter 5. And so I want to approach the Lord of the Vineyard tonight and have you see, like TJ said in his prayer, more of his personality, more of his characteristics, and also more how he's going to be in your life, okay? So I know that there's lots of different ways to look at this chapter. You can look at it, there's a lot of the times it's preached from the standpoint of, here's what's happening in the earth's history. Here's what it's going to look like through the gathering of Israel and the people falling away. I want to zero in and laser focus on you, okay? So that said, let's go to start in Jacob chapter 4, okay? Jacob chapter 4 is kind of the introduction for Jacob chapter 5. In fact, when the Book of Mormon was originally printed, Jacob 4 and 5 just ran in straight in together. They were just like part of the same thing, okay? So in Jacob chapter 4, let's go verse 17, okay? We're going to just cut to the chase and start in verse 17. Verse 17 is the question that Jacob chapter 5 is going to answer. Okay, so let's start there and see what the question is, and then we'll dive into Jacob chapter 5 and see how it answers this question, okay? So can I get a reader for Jacob 4, verse 17? Haley, go ahead.
And now, my beloved, how is it possible that these, after having rejected the sure foundation, can ever build upon it, that it may become the head of their corner?
Yeah. In verse 18, he's like, behold, I will unfold this mystery unto you with Jacob chapter 5, 77 verses of answering the question, again, of 17. Now, not necessarily about the Jews, yes, about the Jews, but again, be thinking about your own life here. How is it possible that Jason, right, or whoever, after having rejected the sure foundation, which is Christ, right, can ever build upon it again, that it may become the head of their corner? In other words, if I fall away or walk away from Jesus or reject him or rebel or whatever, or just be lazy even, right? How can I ever expect to have Jesus back as the head or as like my foundation if I've like neglected him as the foundation in the first place? So that's the question that Jacob chapter 5 is going to answer, okay? So turn to Jacob chapter 5 and let's start in verse 3, okay? All right, so let's look at Jacob chapter 5, verse 3, and let's look at what God's going to do in our life. Again, what can we learn about Jesus, like TJ said in his prayer, about his character, personalities, how he's going to be in our life, okay? All right, so very first part of chapter 5, verse 3. Can I get a reader for that, please? London, go ahead.
For behold, thus saith the Lord, I will liken thee, O house of Israel, like unto a tame olive tree, which a man who took and nourished in his vineyard, and it grew, and waxed old, and began to decay.
Okay, so already, what do we learn? Says he will liken thee, you, to what? To a tame olive tree, right? We're going to be compared and likened to a tame olive tree. Now, what's the problem with the olive tree at the end of verse 3? It's beginning to decay, right? If you look at the footnote for decay, what does it say? Apostasy. And what does apostasy mean? Can someone define apostasy for me? Yes, TJ?
Absence of priesthood power from you.
Okay, maybe it's an absence of priesthood power. Good. Elder Campbell, how would you bring that out even further?
Kind of falling away from Christ.
It's maybe a falling away from Christ, right? So in other words, when this tree, this olive tree, starts to decay, or when I start to decay, I maybe am falling away a little bit from Christ. Maybe I'm falling away from Christ in my thoughts. Maybe it's my actions. Maybe it's my habits. Maybe it's just, I don't know, how I spend my time, right? All of those things and more could be just a state of decay. How quickly do we fall into a state of decay or apostasy, by the way? Pretty quick, right? It can be pretty quick. Like we think we're like rock solid, right? General conference comes around, which by the way, wasn't it just, it was just so good. It was just so good, right? So amazing. General conference comes around, we have this huge spiritual high, and then it's like, decay, right? I'm going to do all of these things. I'm going to be all these things. And then like a week passes and it's like, right? Decay starts to set in. Now, I know all you college people know this, but there's a time probably in all of our lives when it was like, if you're going to be a really good friend, that means you just don't really call me out when I'm, decaying, when I'm in the wrong, right? You just kind of like let me do my thing, right? Don't bug me. Don't judge me. Don't judge me, right? And that's a good friend. The one's not going to judge you. You're just going to live your... Guys, that is, first of all, not a good friend. And secondly, that's not how God is. If he notices that you're in the wrong, like Tanner just said, if he notices that the decay is starting to set in, God and Jesus are going to take a very active role in your life. What did Elder Kearon say in conference? That God is in what kind of pursuit of you? A relentless pursuit. He's relentlessly pursuing you. At the slightest sign of decay, he's going to be relentlessly pursuing you. So, that said, when he starts to notice some rotten fruit coming, or some limbs that are starting to wither, or a trunk even that's starting to get diseased, what's he going to do? Let's find out. Okay, verse 4. Here we go. We'll call verse 4, at least the beginning of it, round 1. Okay? We're talking like TJ prayed. That was a perfect prayer, TJ. Let's look at Jesus' characteristics when we start to decay. Okay? So chapter 5, verse 4. Can I get a reader for that, please? Who's got it? Tanner, go ahead.
And it came to pass that the master of the vineyard went forth, and he saw that his olive tree began to decay. And he said, I will prune it, and dig about it, and nourish it, that perhaps it may shoot forth young and tender branches, and it perish not.
Yeah. Okay, so very first thing. We've got a little decaying going on. We've got a little tree or plant or bush or whatever that's getting a little overgrown. It's getting a little out of control, right? The very first, what's round 1? What's the first step the Lord's going to take in trying to, help that thing grow a little bit? Prune, right? He's going to prune it. I wish that Lily was here, Lily Patch, because she's my arborist. Okay, she's great. But you guys know Lily Patch? She's so awesome. Yeah, I love Lily. What does it mean? What does it mean to prune a tree or a plant or a bush or
Usually prune like anything that's dead or dying or that's diseased or has bugs, so that the tree or plant can give its full energy to the leaves that are going to help it.
Wonderful, wonderful, right? If the thing's getting overgrown, it's perfect. Especially with like a tree. For example, I used to have 4 fruit trees. Now I have 3. Okay. You think I would have learned something from this, but no. Decay is the natural state of my yard. But I used to have 4, now I have 3. The peach tree's gone. That one's dead. The apple tree's probably next. Why? Because I haven't really pruned it all that much. And when you don't prune something, like a tree, an apple tree, the branches just kind of go all over the place. And what happens is if there's branches going all over the place and competing with really the healthy ones, like Samantha mentioned, is that it especially blocks out the light. Okay, so think of the symbolism. It blocks out the light. And so pruning, it doesn't take a lot of effort. Has anybody pruned a tree before? Yeah. Elder, is it hard?
No.
Not really. Is it aggressive even? No. Like you might even just have like little just shears almost, just little, just getting a little out of shape. So I'm just going to snip it and snip this and snip that and kind of cut it back a little bit, and with the idea that more light and more nutrients can come into it. And usually with a little pruning, regularly done, that tree's going to produce pretty good fruit for a long time. But it's, it's not all that aggressive. It's just a little, just kind of gentle, just clean it up a little bit. And so I guess for my first question is, when have you guys been pruned? Now, it's not like a huge thing, right? It's like Elder said, I can't remember his last name. It's like Elder said that it's not overly aggressive, like Shar said too. It's just kind of a maintenance thing. So when have you, by the Spirit, by the Holy Ghost, by Jesus, whatever you want to say, been, kind of just cut down a little, and you've noticed more light coming in? Yeah, Haley.
Last week I was at work and I didn't really like the feeling I had, and I didn't know why, and I was trying to think about, was it thoughts in my head, was it my surroundings, and I kind of realized that some of my coworkers tend to talk pretty negatively, and that I had caught on to that and started looking at the glass half empty just a little bit, and the Spirit just prompted me to make a new goal to focus on speaking more positively and more faithfully rather than fearfully. And that was just a little thing that, because I've always been a positive person, so noticing that kind of felt like a little bit of a pruning, but it's definitely, especially recommitting myself to that and being more mindful of my thoughts and the things I'm going to say. It's been really effective in helping me feel the Spirit. So.
That's amazing. More light has come in, and there's better fruit being. I can't imagine bad fruit ever. And I can't even imagine you thinking negatively at all. Haley's the most positive person I've ever met.
Oh, yeah, I had chocolate milk.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Oh, wow. See? Yeah. I need to correct how I'm thinking about chocolate milk. These little prunings, but not overly aggressive, right?
Yeah, there's just something.
Just kind of a thought that you thought, maybe I should change. Maybe I should adjust that, right? That's really, really good. That's great, Haley. That's great. Welcome, guys. Sorry for the traffic. Were you guys in the accident?
No, we were at the temple.
Oh, you're at the temple. Okay, that's the office. Happy accident at the temple with the Spirit. You ran into the Spirit, okay? Collided into it. Just head-on collision with the Spirit. Okay, so how many more can I come up with? So, welcome, guys. You look great. Oh, so good. Anybody else willing to testify of just how you've been pruned a bit? And what's the nutrition, what's the fruit that's come from it? Jack, Sammy, London?
So back in October, at the beginning of our second trimester, we're starting seminary. Again, it was my first try at seminary. And I went into it as I usually do. And I kind of realized okay, this is my senior year. I'm going into kind of some big time decisions, and I want to serve a mission and everything. And I was I'm going to serve a mission. I should probably actually read fully the book that I'm going to be teaching about. And so I started reading the Book of Mormon every night, and then that slowly developed into more better habits. Okay, I'm going to pray before I read, and then I'll read, and then it eventually turned to okay, now I'm underlining things and annotating, and I feel I'm able to recognize things in my life more that I can relate back to the scriptures and Jesus Christ and stuff. And it's just simple habit building that has gotten me where I am, and now I'm going through it slow to make sure I understand it instead of just reading it. So I'm middle of Alma, and I hope to finish before I get sent off, which I will.
Yeah, you'll get there.
That's cool.
Absolutely, man. That is way cool, and the fruits come. Yeah, I've heard your comments in class, and it's just so good. And were those promptings from the Holy Ghost particularly painful?
I'd be tired.
Sure.
That's the beginning right now. It's I'll get home and stuff. I don't feel like reading, but we talked about this already. How if you ever seen yourself not wanting to pray, it's definitely not from God, because He always wants to talk to you. And I just kind of relate that to the scriptures too. If I ever don't want to read, it's not from Him. And what's 5 minutes, even if it's just a verse or a chapter?
Yeah.
Still more than nothing.
It doesn't take a lot to just prune and take care of that tree, right? But it's got to be kind of a constant thing of maintenance. But it's not that bad, right? And it gets really good fruit. Yeah, that's so good, Jack. Thanks, man. Sammy?
Well, we just, this happened last weekend. I went to I was in a conference at home, and, in the Spirit, I feel great. I'm okay. There's so many things I want to change. I just felt really good. And I had to run. I have a swig addiction, so I had to run and get my swig drink between sessions.
It's okay.
And so I get in my car, and my Bluetooth syncs up to my car, and it just starts playing random songs. So I get in my car, I start driving, and I realized that a lot of the song lyrics, I don't know what was going on, but the Spirit just totally left. I was wait, I was hearing something, what happened? And I looked, and I noticed a lot of the songs on the playlist I'd been listening to were explicit, and not saying like horrible things,
Yeah.
probably weren't the best things either. And so it made me just think like, okay, maybe I need to go and help the music and listening to them. So it was worth it, and so was the putting out the music. I feel a lot better now.
That's so great. Like, Sammy, and great job. I know that's not an easy change to make, but again, it's not like it's super uncomfortable, but there's some changes that need. I'm just curious, Sammy, I'm putting you on the spot, but like, what does it teach you about Jesus that he would prune even just the music on your playlist? Look, prune you, but you know what I mean, to take that action?
It's like varies so much in details of your life and wants to be with you, but you've got to be able to open those doors and you've got
Yeah.
to be able to accept them. You want him to be there, but you won't force anything if you're not wanting to be there.
So good. It's like, I want fruit on this branch, but we've got to do that to this one for there to be fruit there. That's awesome, Sammy. It's so good. And can I just comment real quick, too, on just how cool this class is? We have such a diverse group. We have people in their careers. We have people that are married, and we have people that are engaged. We have people that are divorced. We have people that are graduating from high school soon with their mission calls. We have people that just got home. I hope you can all just like learn so much from each other. Like, this is such a good group of people. So anyway, I just love it. London?
I just kind of noticed recently, scrolling through like TikTok and Instagram, seeing a lot of very negative things about the church and stuff. And
What?
I would go search through the comments and just like get very angry at all of the negative comments about the church and just kind of like, I don't know, just be like very like, oh, this isn't true. I don't know why you're spreading all this false stuff. Like, it was just like super, like that's just, I would just immediately go straight to the comments. And I've noticed like when I see negative things posting, like just kind of ignoring the comments, scrolling past the video, and even like posting stuff for myself. Like there was this trend that was reasons why I left the Mormon church, and it was people that would go through and just state all of these terrible things that they just that they had to say. And then I saw one a couple days ago, and it was reasons why we stay. And I just like, I saw that and I just felt the spirit so strongly, and I got it. My friend sent it to me today, and she said these comments just filled me with rage. And I didn't even go look at the comments when I saw that video, because I knew that they would just be negative. And even I posted some things, like I posted about just how, like there was a trend, oh that's so pretty, I'm going to take a picture, and I just posted pictures of the temple that I've taken.
Cool.
And there's negative comments just even on my own videos that I posted. And so like kind of just listening to the spirit when I see those things and ignoring the negative things has really helped me kind of stay more positive and keep the spirit in my life.
Yeah, and that's just a really simple, just snip, right? Yeah. A side note that reminds me, if you guys have not yet read and reread and re-listened to Elder Corbridge's BYU devotional, Stand Forever, you have to listen to it. And it's so good. It's one of my favorite talks of all time. But going along with, this is just a side note to what London was saying, but Elder Corbridge, his main assignment when he was a 70 was to wade through the anti-Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints literature that's out there. And he'll tell you in that, he says, look, it got to the point where I didn't need to research much of the anti-material at all. He's like, I know it's just not true because it has, there's the absence of the Spirit of God. And I felt the Spirit. I know what it feels like. And reading that fills me with a feeling that I know is not from God. And that's enough to know. That's great, Lennon. Thank you. Brennan, you had your hand up. What the? Okay.
I was just going to say, I don't have a specific one to share necessarily.
That's all right.
But I think one of the most powerful things that I have done is just like, if you ask to be pruned, there's pruning to be done.
Yes.
So if you look for opportunities, like actively, and be willing to do whatever comes. Like one of the things for me was music.
Yeah.
To change what I listened to. And that was always a thing that could have changed, whether I was in high school or after. But it only changed when I was like, okay, I'm willing to change that. And then the thought came for me to pay a little bit better attention to it and change it.
Ooh, that's so good. It's so good, and it's doctrinal too. Check this out. Look at verses 63 65 and 66. Going along with this pruning idea that Brennan just said. That was so good, man. So good. And I have a lot to say to you two after this class. Okay, so in a great way. So 65 and 66. Brennan, can you actually read that first 65? Jacob 5, verse 65. This is exactly what you just said. Okay, go ahead.
And as they begin to grow, you shall clear away the branches which bring forth bitter fruit, according to the strength of the good and the size thereof. And you shall not clear away the bad fruit thereof all at once, lest the roots thereof should be pushed onto the graft, and the graft thereof shall perish, and I will be true when I'm in.
Did you guys catch that? How much is God going to prune away at one time? Just a little, right? You don't have to clear out now, don't misunderstand, but like Brennan's saying, like that thought came to me when my mind and my heart was open to it. Verse 65, guys, clear away the bitter, clear away the bad, but clear it away according to the strength of the good and the size thereof. Don't clear out away the bad thereof all at once. As the good and the stronger gets better and stronger, then you clear out more of the bad and the bitter, right? Verse 66, Brennan, can you read that one as well?
For it grieveth me that I should lose the trees of my vineyard. Wherefore ye shall clear away the bad according as the good shall grow, that the root and the top may be equal in strength, until the good shall overcome the bad, and the bad be hewn down and cast into the fire, that they cumber not the ground in my vineyard. And thus will I sweep away the bad on my vineyard.
Yeah, there you go. Clear away the bad according as the good shall grow, that the root and the top may be equal in strength, and until the good will overcome the bad. I hope that gives you guys hope. If you've been working with like something, a habit or an addiction or music, and it's like, I can't cut it off. Oh, I don't know. I don't think that's clearly not his expectation. If you would do that, you'd kill the tree. So just as the good grows, clear out more of the bad. Does that go along with what you've been studying? I'm just curious, Samantha. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. Different comment, but go ahead.
I've learned like a lot about habit building.
Yeah.
I'm going into like grad school and counseling, education, all that. And the kicker with habits is you can't just take out a bad habit and expect it to just be gone. You have to replace it with a good habit. So you can't just like stop, you can't just like stop eating junk food. You have to replace it with something else good.
It's good.
Else the bad habit just comes right back.
It's really good, Samantha. That's good. Did I cut you off? Is there anything else you wanted to say? That's perfect. Great. Thank you. Guys, any other testimonies, witnesses about, just make sure nobody else first, London, about pruning. You've been pruned and how you've seen fruit and light come into you because of it. Okay, London, finish. Oh, yeah, Morgan, go ahead.
Well, there was a time where I was like, I thought I was so doing well. I thought I was like super thriving. I was like living my best life, like living in Hawaii, just running around doing whatever. And then I got pruned pretty bad. Like I had a high school boyfriend, which I was like so in love with. It was like the best thing in the world. And then something in me just told me like, this is not like, he's great and everything's great, but it's not where you should be. And so I ended up deciding like that wasn't where I was going to go with it. So it was like super hard for me. But then once I decided that I didn't want to continue this relationship, like my whole spirituality, my whole everything just like flipped around, and I was so much better because I wasn't like super like spiritually strong at the time, but
Sure.
I was, like, just having like a great life, like not making like the greatest decisions. But when I cut that part out of my life, like something in me just, my spirituality went so high, which was super cool. So it's like when you go through something super hard, I think that's what it was. Like it was so hard that I was like, I need Jesus. I cannot do this alone.
Yeah.
It was bad. I was like, I need something else because I'm not doing it. So yeah, and then like just like spirituality has been so much better and easier now that the Lord told me to like take that part of me out away.
That's so awesome. And what's cool is going back to Samantha's comment, this just came to me while you're saying that, Morgan. Thank you for sharing. Is like the idea of replacing, you got to replace it with something. And not that you're replacing your boyfriend with Jesus, but in a way, kind of. But the cool thing, but the great thing, well, and what I'm getting at is the great thing about that is like when you get another boyfriend, especially a husband, Jesus doesn't go. You just bring,
Oh no, yeah, we did
right?
another boyfriend.
Oh, we had another boyfriend.
Well, now we do.
Oh, we do. And we're all in the party.
He's like this. He's so amazing.
Tall, dark, and handsome. Yes. Okay, good. Yeah. Emphasis on the handsome. Yeah. Okay, good. I'm happy for you, Morgan. That's great. Okay, that actually leads me into what I wanted to say next. London, did you have anything else you want to add about pruning?
I was going to say, like, just like the Lord doesn't reveal things to us, He doesn't let it online, precept upon precept, He's not going to expect us to take things away more than we're ready.
Exactly right. If I was just to go to cut off all the branches of my tree, right? That would make no sense. Just little, as the good one continues to grow, cut off the other ones. That's perfect. So guys, just be thankful that we have the gift of the Holy Ghost with us. How often? Always, right? There's a reason. The Holy Ghost is constantly, whether it's music or dating or your career or classes you're taking at college or whatever, if there's any sign of decay, you can count on the Lord just, or even potential signs of decay. He's very proactive. He doesn't even usually wait for there to be a state of decay or apostasy. He's going to just prune. And that's usually through the Holy Ghost saying, hey, maybe you should pay attention to fill in the blank, right? And fruit, as you've heard so many people testify of, comes from it. It's so good. So good, guys. But look at verse. Okay, so verse 5, he's like, I pruned it, I digged about it, I nourished it. Wonderful. But what about verse 6? Jacob 5, verse 6. Pruning's great. And we hope that's all it takes for us to produce fruit and to grow in the way that we need to, right? It's not very aggressive. We just kind of get a little trim and maintenance and all that. But for this tree in particular, and sometimes for us, did it work? Did all that pruning work in verse 6? Not really. What's happening at the end of verse 6? The main part of it, the main top is just is perishing. We pruned it and we hoped the tree would respond, but it's just, the pruning didn't cut it. And so, the Lord being the Lord and the God being God and Jesus being Jesus, He's not going to stop there. He's like, oh, shoot, well, I don't really want to hurt Kenzie anymore. I don't want to inflict any more pain. I'm just going to kind of figure this out. That's not what Jesus does. Again, TJ prayed you'd see his character tonight, and you're going to see it. He will prune, but he'll also do what in verse 7? He says, it grieveth me that I should lose this tree. I can't, and it's obviously pruning's not just working. And so what is round 2? Yeah. Pluck, graft, and we'll talk about this one in just a minute, but in verse 13, not yet, not going to burn yet. He might try before that in verse 13. What's he going to do? He's going to place in the nethermost part of his vineyard, isn't he? Okay. Talk to me about plucking. You guys pluck your eyebrows, right? Some of us. No. Okay. What does it mean to pluck something? Just boom. You're pulling it right out. And in this case, we're pulling out branches. Okay, tell me about that. Is that a little more aggressive than, a little more violent, a little more painful? Okay, but again, the Lord's like this tree. It's decaying. If pruning's not going to make it, I might have to pluck some of the things that are decaying. Let me give you 2 examples, and I want to hear from you guys again, okay? I'll give you one example of a kid I know. I won't mention his name. But a kid I know very well, when he was young, all the time when he was just a little boy up through high school, football was his God. God was not his God, but football was. And as a result, this young man started to decay, big time, spiritually. Started really when he was in like 9th grade, got super bad in high school, and just spiritually decayed like crazy, right? Ended up obviously not graduating from seminary, made some pretty hard choices that he still is paying for. He's starting to turn around his life. But the thing that happened in high school, he had waited his whole life for senior year to play football. This is the moment, right? He's been working for since he was like 5. I'm going to get scholarships. I'm going to go play pro ball. I think it was the second game of the season. Guess what happens? Knee injury. Football season plucked. I can see that this kid is decaying. In other words, Jesus is saying. He's not responding to the pruning. I don't want to have to do this, but I will. Pluck. Now, unfortunately, he didn't respond to that either, and more drastic things have had to take place, but that's just one example. Let me give you an example from my own life. So before I was in seminary, and even still, I'm involved in real estate, but I was at a mortgage company for years, and when I was in college, and then my first real job after college, I was a full-time mortgage loan officer. And about a week before, this is what it was. About a week before Allie and I got married, rates spiked, not nearly as high as they are now, but interest rates spiked. And my boss's boss had a big meeting with us all, and he's like, business is going to dry up. You got to do whatever you can to get these deals done. And so he made us go through and recall and try to work with as many former clients as we had worked with before and see if we could save them some more money, whatever. It worked for some. Most of them, it was like, this doesn't make sense. In particular, there was this one lady in Alaska. I did loans all over the country, but there was this one lady in Alaska, older lady. She was probably in her 80s at the time. Her name was Victoria. And I had worked with her before. I'd saved her a ton of money. It was so good. But to do another deal for her, which I had just done one like 6 months ago for her, so it's kind of sketchy anyway. But to do another deal for her, it would have saved her like $8 a month, and it would have cost her like $6,000. Like, how does this make sense, right? So I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's wrong. I'm not going to call her. I knew if I pushed, I really probably could have, because she really liked me, and she was older, and I could have made it happen if I really had wanted. But I'm like, no way, I'm not calling her. So I just like crossed her off, moved down the list, life went on. Well, soon thereafter, like the next day, my department manager, again, my boss's boss, comes to me. He's this huge guy, like super tall, deep voice, and he's like, hey, come talk to me in my office for a minute. I'm like, okay. Right? So like little Jason, like fresh out of college, right? Follows him into his office. I sit down. He's like looming over me. He's got his computer. He's got his like monitor there or whatever. He flips his monitor around, and I'm like sitting down low. And he flips it around, and there's Victoria's file on the computer. And like you can see there, like, oh, it shows that I haven't called her at all. And so he's like, why haven't you called Victoria? Why haven't you called this client? And I'm like, well, it's wrong. I just did a deal for her like 6 months ago. It's going to save her no money. No, I'm not doing it. And he's like, he literally got in my face, and he's like, no, you will call her today and make this happen. I didn't say anything. I'm just like, whatever, man. So I go back to my desk. Of course, I didn't call her. Whatever. And, the week went by. Got married the next week. Went on our honeymoon. Great. Down to Mexico. Don't remember much about it, but we were there. And but we go down to Mexico, and it's fine. It's great. I get back, go back to work, and there for a couple days. It's like, I think they waited till Friday. I don't remember if they were that kind. But plucked. Laid off. It was messed up. the company owner a few days later emailed me and was like, so sorry. You can have your job back. And I'm like, no way, I'm not coming back. But at the time, it was hurtful. It was devastating. I worked with a lot of my best friends. It was really fun, and it was a great opportunity. But it was plucked right out of my life. And I'm not saying that was God or Jesus, but I kind of, in a way, think it might have been. Because the truth is I was probably starting to decay. And I was probably not starting to grow the best fruit, especially for my wife and for my kids someday. And here's the reality of it. If that hadn't happened, we may not be in this room right now. And so it was painful and it hurt. But I see now, and I see more clearly, especially in the last year or so, that it needed to happen. And even though it was painful to have that thing plucked out of my life, I've had so much more light, Jesus' light, in my life than I ever had it in that job. And I'm so grateful that it got plugged, as hard as it was. So, that said, can anybody testify of when something's been plucked out of your life? Macy?
So all of last school year up in college, it was the best year of my life. I made so many connections. I was so many great friends. I was growing. I've never had a better year. It was so amazing.
Good.
And then right after the summer, beginning of the fall semester, a whole bunch of stuff happened at once that completely plucked me, like from that, I don't know how to say it exactly, but
No?
I was kind of forced to come home, and I kind of lost like all those connections. Like my closest friends kind of stopped talking to me, and it was so hard. And I'm still struggling to kind of understand why that had to happen. But I guess I probably was starting to decay a little.
Well, here's the thing, Macy, and for anybody, do you know how long it takes for fruit to come on a fruit tree?
A season.
A season, maybe many. Like I said, when I got plucked from that job, that was over 10 years ago. And it's only now that I'm starting to see the real good fruit. So just trust him. Trust that the Lord of the Vineyard knows how to take care of his trees. He knows. Which we'll read about in a second. Thanks, Macy. Anybody else willing to testify of this kind of experience? Yes, Elder.
Well, for me, it was my mission. Like, I see all you guys going out on missions. Like, yeah, I'm a service missionary, but that year I had in Mexico was unlike anything I ever experienced in my life. It was the best and it was the hardest year of my life. And when it ended, I was super frustrated. I still don't know exactly why, but I know that there was a reason. And I'm still living, still serving, but because I know that it was for my good, whatever it may have been. I'm super glad that I'm here with you guys today.
I'm glad you're here too. Anybody else? See what I mean? It's a little more painful than just pruning, isn't it? Yeah, Hyatt.
I had an experience on my mission. We'll go into the details, but I got Dear John, and that was
Pluck.
yeah, that was a crazy pluck for me.
Yep.
And it was like I was doing well. I was like a year, a little more into my mission. I was doing great, but maybe the reasons I was out there weren't like 100% what they should be.
Sure.
And I just remember like after that, it was like there was this big hole in my life, and it just had to be filled by something, and it was Jesus Christ, because I was on a mission. And so I was plucked and put into so much better of a situation. And yeah, that really sucked then, but my life now is like so much better, and I'm so much more of an individual because of it. and I gained such a testimony of my covenants that I was able to give to other people. And it was like, it was pretty bad, but it was almost instantly like the rewards came. The fruit didn't take too long.
Yeah, it doesn't. Sometimes it doesn't. So good, man. So good. Thank you. Santa.
So after I got back from my mission, a little bit after, I moved out of home for the first time, actually moved out, got an apartment, got a job and everything, and the job turned out to just suck. It sucked so bad.
Sure.
And eventually my semester ended, I quit the job, and I had to move back home, and at the time it was I was losing the independence. It's like you're moving back into your parents' basement, literally. And what ended up happening was my parents had been fostering, and they've been fostering my little brother, and my little sister came to live with them.
Wow.
Around when I moved back in, and she ended up passing away at less than 2 years old. But that, because I lost that job and moved back in, I was living at home for the year and a half that we had her.
Wow. Thank you. I don't even know what to say. Thank you, Samantha. Other than, like Sammy said, He's in the details. Yeah, Abby.
On my mission, I had a companion she would always say that life can only be lived forward but understood backwards. And I think that really grew my testimony of this concept of plucking, because I think so many times, things are going well in our life and we're like, this is awesome. And then all of a sudden we're plucked out and thrown somewhere else and we're like, what the heck? I was doing so good.
Right.
But it really just puts that in perspective with, Christ sees the whole picture and we just see the little tiny puzzle piece. And we just have to trust that his plans are so much greater than ours are. And it really is just that process of trusting him, trusting that, he's got our back and we just have to live forward with faith. And it's just a powerful concept that I've learned, but it's hard.
It is hard. It is hard. Thank you, Abby. Well, and you remind me, look at verses, oh, this is so good. It's in verses 20, where are we? I'm in 65, there we go. Verses 20, okay, so let me back up. So as part of this, there's plucking, we'll talk about grafting in a second, but there's also this idea that sometimes he's going to place us in the nethermost part of the vineyard. Maybe you feel like when we look at the vineyard, right, that you've been placed up here and the ground is crappy, right? It's like, why have I been placed here? Why has everybody left? What's up with my family? Why are my parents getting divorced? What about this? What about that? Why is my relationship this? This ground is terrible. Why did you place me here? Or why did you have to pluck this out or graft this in or whatever it might be? Whew. But check this out. Skipping ahead just a little bit. Look in verses... So, first of all, verse 20, what do you guys notice about the tree that had been placed in the nethermost part of the vineyard? Tell me about its fruit.
Much fruit.
It brought forth much fruit and beheld that it was good. Now, also in verse 21, the servant that's with the Lord of the vineyard says what to the Lord of the vineyard? In modern English, what does he say?
Why'd you put it there?
Why did you put it here? This is the crappiest place in the whole vineyard. Don't you know the ground is barren? Don't you know that the family's falling apart? Don't you know these parents are getting divorced? Don't you know that this person has health problems? Don't you know that it's going to be super hard for them to come home from their mission? Why did you place them in the nethermost part of this vineyard, right? Lord, wouldn't they be better here? And some of the best things you will learn about Jesus and his character is right here in verse 22. Those 5 words. Read them for me, D-Ray.
Counsel me not. I know there is a poor scholar.
Counsel me not. How often do we, like Abby said, right, maybe want to try to counsel the Lord? Why did my football season? Why this injury? Why this? Why that? Why did this person break up with me? Why did you pluck this? Why did you graft this? Why? And the Lord's going to say what? Counsel me not. I knew. Yeah, I have a plan. I knew it was a poor spot of ground. I knew it was a poor spot of ground when I sent Caden there. I knew it was a poor spot of ground when Ethan had to come here, right? Wherefore I said unto thee, I have nourished it this long time, and thou beholdest that it hath brought forth much fruit. You can say it's a poor spot of ground, but guess what? Because I am the Lord of the vineyard, what's going to happen? Fruit. The Lord does not produce trees that don't grow fruit. Everything that he does or doesn't do in your life is for your benefit, for your growth, right? Even look here in verse 18. Look 2/3 of the way down where it says now. Can someone read that sentence? Alec, read that sentence for us where it says now.
Now if we had not grafted in these branches, the tree thereof would have perished.
If we had not done this, plucking or grafting or placing or whatever you want to call it, if this had not happened, what would have happened? The tree would have perished. As Elder Kearon said, he's in relentless pursuit of you. Yes, pruning, great. We hope that's all maybe it takes. But if it's going to take more, you better bet your bottom dollar that he will do more. He's going to come after you. And if it means he might have to pluck or place or graft, grafting, if we're plucking is taking things out, what is grafting? Putting things in. Do you know the process of grafting? Yes, Haley, explain it real quick.
This is the way I'm familiar with, but you cut a branch like diagonally and you of the main tree, and then the branch that you want to add in from a different tree, you cut it diagonally, and then you have to tie or tape them together and wait for them to grow into each other. I think is that.
Yes, you're exactly right. And that healthy, good, strong branch can help heal the one that's sick. And this is also how you make hybrid fruit.
Yes.
I was just gonna say something like, notice how it can't happen without the open cut.
The open cut. It's interesting you mentioned that too, because as I was reading about pruning today, I learned that it's only through pruning that wounds on trees can be healed. It just, I don't know. It just clears it out, allows nutrients to heal the wound on the tree. Elder?
It takes away things it removes the unnecessary things, so that the tree can focus on the things that need work done.
There you go. Thank you, Elder. Here's a question, and this is maybe where we'll end. I'll give you a few more verses in a second, but I want to hear just a couple things about this. There's lots of things that could be grafted into your life that maybe you don't want there. That's really uncomfortable. Maybe it's an illness. Maybe it's the end of a relationship. Maybe it's maybe it is a relationship. Maybe someone is grafted into your life that you didn't want there. You and I have all had friends grafted into our lives that drove us crazy at first that we end up being best friends with, right? But here's my question. How many of you have had Jesus graft himself into you? We're like, forget it, I'm done, I'm coming in. And it was uncomfortable, maybe painful, but now maybe you've become something of a hybrid with Jesus, a hybrid fruit, where he's become a huge part of you. Anybody testify of that experience where he's come in and it's painful, but you've now become one? Maddie, then Tanner and Samantha, then Brennan.
One time I could think of is at my senior year, I had a friend and we were really close, and then stuff happened and I had a best friend sort of breakup type thing, and then my grandpa passed away, and it was just everything all at once, and I felt like I had no one, and it was just super lonely. And I remember I drive to school, drive back, all I was doing was just crying because I couldn't handle it anymore. And I remember in that moment, I would cry myself to sleep too. And I just remember there were nights where I would hear a little voice and it was they might not be there for you, but I am. And it was just, and I knew it was the Spirit, I knew it was Christ stepping into my life being all those pains that you're feeling right now, I know those pains, I felt them, and I'm here for you. And that was such a huge like testimony builder for me to know that like I really wasn't alone, but that like he was by my side no matter what I was going through, that he was there with me every step of the way.
How has that changed you, knowing that he's with you?
How it's changed everything, changes how I view every day.
It's powerful. Thanks, Maddie. Who is next? It's Tanner and Samantha, then Brennan. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to share, like, last year and like the beginning of this year, I had a friend group, and they were fun, they were entertaining, they were funny, and but like more and more as it progressed, there was a lot of like red flags, like, okay, these guys are not like good guys, like the guys I thought they were.
Yeah.
And I just like need to get out of it, and I stayed a lot longer than I probably should have, and then I was simply like ejected, and it was kind of a plucking experience.
Yeah.
And then this friend group, I really hadn't given it like good consideration, but it became more and more. I started spending my time with them, and I became really good friends with this friend group, and I didn't really expect it. But I feel like it's kind of like that. Like the Lord is okay. You're not doing anything about it. I'm the author of your story, so I'm gonna do this for you. Yeah.
It's powerful. How's it been since? More light?
It's been great. So much more. Yes.
It's awesome, man. Samantha?
Yeah, my like grafting experience for me was going on a mission.
So painful.
Like, I didn't go for the best reasons in the first place, but I went on a mission, and during my mission I started having a lot of mental health issues. And that I think was like the painful part, but it was also Jesus coming and saying like, here I am, like this is where you needed to like have this whole mess happen. And then that like led into me, like I ended up majoring in psychology for my bachelor's, like now I'm in school to be a therapist. Like it kind of, like I think God knew like what I was gonna end up doing before I did. It's like I had no idea then.
Always does. He's in the details, like Sammy said. Thank you, Samantha. Brennan?
Mine is kind of like just my kind of conversion a little bit. Like, I was never a terrible person.
No.
But, like, I just didn't really do anything gospel related with intention at all. And, like, high school was just, like, do whatever and do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and with no direction. And I got on a mission, and it was, like, honestly a lot of the same. Like, I was a missionary, but there's like being a missionary and then like choosing to be a missionary and like be good at it and work hard at it and have it change you. And I was just like really stubborn. I think just my personality is like that, and so it was hard for me to, I never really like reflected long enough, I think, to be like, oh, maybe I could like be happier and have better experiences than I did have. And then the grafting was, I had a companion that one day just was like, what are you doing? Like, you're just wasting your time. You're wasting your time. Like, you have a lot of potential and you're completely wasting it. Like,
wow.
Just doing what you're doing, like, why? It's just so stupid. Apart from, like, not being what you're supposed to do, it's just illogical. And you're just being dumb. And it was like with so much love, though. Like he called me stupid, but it was like,
yeah,
it was perfectly what he needed to say, and it was just like finally someone just looking at me and like actually getting past my stubbornness and being like, you're just wasting yourself. And it was hard because like then my desire changed because he helped me just to see myself in the situation differently. So my desire was there now, but then it was like, when just like grafting a tree, it took a while for it to kind of grow and start producing fruit and to be something that wasn't painful. It was still painful for a while, and I'm still changing, obviously, but that was like a complete flip for me. And I think, I know there were times, because I remember in high school when I would have like there was one week in high school where I like actually read my scripture for the full week. And that was the only time in high school ever, even in my whole life up to that point, that I had done that. And it was like such a good week. And like that was Christ being like trying to prove me, trying to give me a little bit of an experience. But at some point he was just like, okay, I'm coming in.
Yep.
This is what's happening because you're not figuring it out. And after the initial like grafting, then it was easier, I think, for me to choose to be pruned over time. But yeah, it was hard, and then it was amazing, and it's been like the biggest blessing in my life.
And aren't we grateful for him, right? Like Elder Hugh B said in his current Bush talk, like, thank you, Lord, for loving me enough to hurt me. Sometimes we just think Jesus is like, it's all good, whatever, you do you, and like, that's not. Like TJ, pray it again. Like his character is to relentlessly pursue you. And if that means some of this has to happen, then he will. Let me just give you a couple things. If you look in verse, and I'll do this fast, but just look at, starting in verse 11, halfway down. Also halfway down in verse 7. The end of verse 13. End of verse 32. End of verse 46. End of verse 51. And the beginning of verse 66. Do you guys notice the repeated phrase? It grieved with me that I should lose this tree. He repeats it over and over. And you know when the Lord repeats something, he means it. It grieved with me that I should lose TJ or Mary or Macy or whoever. I'm not going to lose them. And even if, as it said in chapter 4, verse 17, if we've rejected the sure foundation, it still grieves him. He doesn't care if you've rejected him. He's going to relentlessly pursue you so that he's your foundation again. And that you are tied and anchored to him, like Elder Uchtdorf talked about. Anchored to him. One last thing to think on and just chew on. Verse 41, verse 47, verse 49. We'll end with this. The Lord, this is just how he functions. What could I have done more for my vineyard? Verse 47. But what could I have done more for my vineyard? Have I slackened mine hand? Nay, I've nourished it, I've digged it, I've bowed it, I've pruned it, dunged it, stretched forth mine hand almost all the day long. And the end draweth nigh, and it grieveth me that I should lose the trees of my vineyards. End of verse 49. What could I have done more for my vineyard? What could I have done more for Tyler, for Bryn, for Jordan? In other words, what he's saying is, sometimes we have the tendency to tell the Lord, like, why'd you place me here? Why'd you pluck this? Why'd you do this? Why'd you graft this? Why'd you do that? Why'd this happen in my life? First of all, he's going to say, counsel me not, I knew. Right? I knew where I would put you. Right? That wasn't an accident. I knew what I was doing. But secondly, it's just that same phrase. If there was anything, in other words, let me flip it. If there was anything more that he could or would do for you and your growth, then you better believe that he would do it. Let me put it another way. Your life is your best shot at salvation and exaltation. Your life is. With all of its plucking and pruning and placing and grafting and fruit and rotten fruit and diseases and everything else. Your life, your tree, is your best shot. And the Lord will stop at nothing to make sure that that happens. The only way it doesn't is if you stop it. But that doesn't mean he's going to turn away either. I have nourished thee this whole time, even when you turned away, even when you were decaying. I still was nourishing you. That's Jesus. That's his character. Because I testify to you that he is going to do these things in your life. But it's out of love, like Brendan testified. It's life-changing. If you feel the pruning, if you feel the plucking, the grafting, whatever, respond. Okay, Lord, this is gone now or this is in. What do I do? How do I produce this fruit? Show me. He doesn't produce trees that don't grow or produce fruit or become something even better. He just doesn't do that. I testify that in the name of Jesus Christ, amen. Can I get a volunteer for closing prayer? I forgot to ask someone. Thanks, Ben.